Today, I'd like to talk about the importance of closing that feedback loop in higher education. Now, this is talked about a lot, but I want to talk about it from the view of sort of our analysis of student surveys and what we find are the key things to bear in mind when trying to close that feedback loop, because we want to really understand what students are saying. That's our fundamental aim. And in order to do that, you've got to build that trust, build that relationship. You can't just ask them once. You've got to build that relationship, you've got to close that feedback loop, and then you can get an honest dialogue. And it's from that dialogue that we can actually make real improvement. So why does this sort of loop, why does that dialogue break down frequently? So again, it's a time, long lags between collection and action, if there's any. So you collect all this data and then it disappears into a black hole for weeks, months, sometimes never to appear. There's also an opacity in decision making. So how are decisions made? Based on what? Right? There's no explanation of, okay, what led to that decision? What data was being used? So there's sort of clarity there. Again, it comes to dialogue, but the dialogue has to be around, okay, this is the data we had, this is what we decided to do and why. And it really helps. And the other issue that often breaks this loop is sort of thinking that, okay, like a generic thanks for your feedback email is enough. I mean, it's really not. You've got to say, thank you for your comments about X, Y, and Z. Here's what we're doing about them. This is the data we're basing off. So the loop breaks down for kind of predictable ways, but there are ways to sort of make it work definitely better. So what we're after with this closed loop of feedback, we're after transparency and dialogue. We're looking for openness about, okay, these are the issues. We want students to tell these issues. We want to be able to take that on the chin and then respond to them, clarify, correct, whatever it might be. And there needs to be visible actions, there needs to be progress. And this can be small things, but actually tangible progress. That, okay, there is actually dialogue here. There's actually conversations happening human to human rather than just via email or whatever, that actually reinforces that things are being done about this. So how to go out, we collect all this data from student surveys. How can we make sure that we are doing the right thing with that data? So we have to get the data as quickly as possible, analyze it, structure it as quickly as possible, and then do some analysis on, okay, what are the root causes here? So look at what are the key topics or categories coming up again and again? What is the sentiment around those? How does that vary based on previous years or compared to other universities? And really build on that quickly, get an idea of, okay, these are the issues, and sort of triage them basically. Then we want to sort of communicate very effectively, okay, these are the issues we found, this is what we're going to do about it. Okay, there's a you said we did dashboards everywhere and posters, which is great as a baseline. You can get staff to sort of mention it in lectures, which is much better. But number one is every single student staff interaction should be around, okay, we're trying to improve this process, right? Talk to students is the number one thing. So how do you demonstrate the impact? Okay, how do you sort of go about structuring sort of this communication, these stories, these narratives around, okay, this is the progress we're making? Use the data, do before and after snapshots of sentiment, right? Make case studies, tell stories and narratives around what's changed, and get students who have seen the changes to speak up and say, look, this thing actually has been improved. This is what it was. This is what it actually is now. And it can really help having that sort of having a peer to the students say what has actually been improved. So this involves building a culture change, right? Of transparency, of dialogue, right? Of moving quite quickly, being data driven, but using that to sort of make decisions that have the biggest impact and then communicating that impact. Let's celebrate success stories very publicly. But if we keep on iterating on this loop, and it is a bit of a treadmill, but as long as you're making real improvements, each of these iteration loops, everyone can come on board, right? Over time, some people might come on board quicker than others, as we know. But I think if you can show improvements in what you're trying to do, you can really get people on board.